Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Coming through all right? Welcome to the Native Species Revival event. How's the volume? Still low. I think it's not. Okay, that sounds a little better now. Okay. Greetings, everyone. Tonight we have a great program we've been working on, and I think you'll all enjoy it very much. So my name is Greg Jones. I'm with Native Species Revival. It's a project newly created and for the times that we're living in. And tonight we're going to hear from a very skilled and experienced landscape designer. And we have a musician just open up the evening for us. And then we'll hear from Master Gardener, Lexi Lesner. How about Matthew Goldberg? He's going to sing us a song. I'm not sure what the title is, but go ahead.
Forgive me for a minute. We have to get a microphone on the guitar. I've been asked to sing at a number of events. Sometimes I take requests. In the last group I took a request from, it was my mistake to ask them what they wanted to hear. They said, "Matthew, could you sing Far, Far Away?" Well, I'm not far away today, but I'm grateful to be here to sing with you. Can you help me? Now, some of you might recognize this song. I hope you do. It was written by David Mallet and popularized by John Denver. And I thought it was appropriate for today because it's about gardening. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless the seeds I sow. Someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Pulling weeds, picking stones, man is made of dreams and bones. Feel the earth to grow my own, 'cause your time is close at hand. Grain for grain, sun and rain, find my way in the nature's chain. To my body and my brain, to the music from the land. Plant your rows straight and long, thicker than with prayer and song. Mother Earth will make you strong if you give her love and care. Old crow watching hungrily from his perch in yonder tree. In my garden I'm as free as that feathered bird up there. Inch by inch and row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch and row by row, someone bless the seeds I sow. Someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Now to introduce our program, we have Master Gardener from Baltimore County, Lexi Lesner, the Director of Baltimore County.
Okay, hey y'all. I'll go without the slides. So yeah, it's okay if they're not up. So yeah, my name is Lexi Leeser. I am the Master Gardener Coordinator and Home Horticulture Educator in Baltimore County. So tonight we have some city Master Gardeners with us. They might be outside manning their table, but the Master Gardener program runs in every county and Baltimore City in the state of Maryland. It's a nationwide program, but here it's run by University of Maryland Extension. Greg is going to pull up my slides so I can give you guys a bit more of an introduction. I'm really excited to listen to our speaker tonight, who's going to go way further into kind of the same topics that we cover in our Master Gardener program and out to the public, y'all in Maryland. So University of Maryland Extension is the public-facing part of University of Maryland. We provide public education to our residents, and so they're meant to be accessible to all individuals in Maryland. So if you start coming to UME programming, you will be familiar with this affirmative statement. And a little bit of background about UME, we have multiple programs, just one of which is Environment and Natural Resources, and I work for ENR. And ENR includes multiple things. It ranges from aquaculture to watershed and climate resiliency. A lot of these things are interrelated, right? It's about sustainable management of our landscapes. One of the major programs of environmental and natural resources is home horticulture. So that includes Home and Garden Information Center. If you've ever used Ask Extension, or you haven't, maybe today's your introduction. It is an online tool where if you go to Ask Extension, you can give them pictures of whatever's going on in your garden, and an expert will get back to you in 48 hours or so to tell you, oh my gosh, you have bugs, or don't worry, it's just a little bit of a drought. So I really recommend Ask Extension. And then the Master Gardener program is the other main home horticulture program that I want to introduce you to. This is about me, but you don't need to know that today. I have a geoscience background, and I used to work in a native plant nursery, so I love seeing those things here. And again, I told you my job. Now, Master Gardeners are volunteer educators who go out into the community to teach about sustainable home landscape management. So again, what's being covered today is totally what we cover as Master Gardener volunteers, and me too as the coordinator employed by UME. The volunteers receive a pretty thorough education in gardening, sustainable gardening, and then they go out into the community and share that knowledge with the rest of the public. So if you're ever interested in being a Master Gardener, the applications are open. You might want to inquire, just so you know. And then Master Gardeners have 6 major programs, one of which is native plants. So I'm not going to go into the rest of them, but native plants, right? That's why we're here tonight. Native plants are really important for our ecosystems. They are essential to insects because they co-evolved. So the insects that are critical for pollination and other ecological services like nutrient cycling and, oh gosh, pest management, they kill some of the pests in your garden. We need native plants so that those insects are able to go through their life cycle and show up every year, year after year. So we're becoming more aware of the importance of native plants and also the beauty. They have value just like, or beautiful, they have beauty that we maybe aren't used to, but they've been here for forever or longer than we have. So anyway, that's one of our major programs. Super glad to be having us here tonight talking more about it. And then just to give you a brief overview, demonstration gardens, if you're near the county line, you might be interested to visit. There's also demonstration gardens at Silburn, I believe, but up in Shawan Road in Cockeysville, we have demonstration gardens. We do workshops and presentations. We do information tables like the one you see out tonight. And then we do Baywise certifications. So if you're doing these practices in your garden, you could get Baywise certified and show your neighbors that you're doing something different, but you're doing it on purpose. These are all the things you could see at the demo gardens. That's about the end of my presentation because, oh no, I have one more. You can see we do a lot of things. There's over 120 active Master Gardeners in Baltimore County and even more in the city, and we provide thousands of hours of education each year. So that's my overview. I don't want to take more time, but I'm really glad to be talking about native plants tonight, and I hope that you will learn more from your Master Gardeners in the future. Go, Alison.
Thank you, Lexi. Now, bear with me while I switch back. Okay. I just have a 5-minute intro to Alison's presentation tonight. As I mentioned, Native Species Revival is the organization that coordinated this and hosting this program. Why and how to create the Homegrown National Park. Can I get a show of hands? How many of you know who Douglas Talamy is? Oh, see, we got a lot of newbies here. Good. Native Species Revival partnering organizations. We have quite a few partners. Roland Park Community Center. That was Angela Taylor. And she coordinates many activities here. Master Gardeners from Baltimore County and Baltimore City. Earth and I magazine has a table outside. Roland Park Presbyterian, are you here in the house tonight? Hello, great. And the Family Church down in DC. I know we got a few folks came all the way up from Anne Arundel County, PG County. And I'm another sponsor I have is IAD Universal Peace Federation. And they're helping with fiscal sponsorships. Herring Run Nursery, Rob Jenkins. I know he's in the house. He's in the back there. Great. And I hope you all can meet Rob and see his table and be introduced to some of the native species he has. And Baltimore Family Church, I think Gregory Jones here, he stole my name. He's in the back. Yeah, there you are. Good to see you. And Wild Side Nursery. Victor and his fiance. I hope I got the name right, Victor. Are you here? I can't see you. Okay, good. We'll have to have you guys come up towards the end after Alison's talk. I worked for 6 years doing research on environmental issues, and we're always looking for good solutions. One thing I have to say about Douglas Talamy is that he really provides a very practical way to solve the biggest problem of increasing how we can increase biodiversity. Our insects right now are down 45%. They're declining. Birds, 30% declining. And these are the reasons. And Douglas Talamy explains all these things in his books. I hope you can get a chance to read them. There it is. My sister actually gave me this book in 2023. Then I went right ahead and invited Dr. Talamy to come to Crofton. Last year, we had a big group, an environmental summit in Crofton, Maryland. There's Doug right in the middle. He gave a great presentation, and that's where I met Alison, our speaker tonight. So this is tiny print, I know, but Douglas Talamy says the hope for how we bring back our ecosystems to health lies in each one of us. And we can restore the ecosystems, and we will restore the ecosystems because we are the only hope. Each of us have to take some initiative. And as a result of this event, I hope to see greater respect for the Creator and the creation and how native species of all kinds are interdependent and need one another to prosper. More homes planting, more native species. More fireflies light up on the Homegrown National Park. You'll learn about the Homegrown National Park tonight and what a firefly is. And we're going to start cutting down those Ailanthus trees, the tree of heaven, and getting rid of some of the lanternflies and the other bugs that invasive species support. I want to give one quote from the founder of the Universal Peace Federation, which is providing some support for this event. Dr. Hakja Hamoon is the founder of that. This quote, proper stewardship and care for the environment is absolutely essential at this time. God created us to love and care for the earth and all its blessings. As we know in Genesis 1:28, before any religion, not promoting any religion here, Genesis 1:28 is the 3 blessings, and one of them is take dominion over the earth through love, through care. And we need to learn how to do that. And that's why Alison's here tonight. We're going to learn about planting natives at home, removal of invasives, and supporting other local restoration events. So without any more, I would like to invite up, wow, I don't have your bio on here, but Alison is a master naturalist, master gardener. She's been educated in the Anne Arundel County Watershed Stewards Academy. She's a writer for the paper down there in Anne Arundel County. Sorry, you do a better job than me. And she's got a degree in electrical engineering through the Navy, her experience with the Navy. So, Air Force. Oh boy, I'm sorry. Come on up, Alison. Let's get a big hand for Alison.
Thank you. I just need your HDMI. No, it's fine. I just need your cable. Both of these. This is not. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm really glad to be here tonight. I'm going to actually take this off because I want to walk a little bit. My name is Alison Milligan, and yes, I have been working with native plants for a long time. I also met Doug Talamay 12 years ago, or 2000, when was that? 2007. And I'll talk a little bit about that. I want to let you know one thing. I live on 0.7 acres. I had a lot of problems in my landscape. I have slopes, I have dry shade, I have wet sun, etc. The photos you're going to see tonight are from my yard. 99% of them are plants in my yard. And I mention that because I'm one person and you're many. And so the goal tonight is for you to think, as I'm showing you these problems and these solutions, as to what you may be able to do on your own properties. And we have wonderful landscapers here. I want to thank the Wildeside Gardener Nursery and also the Herring Run Nursery for coming tonight. And afterwards, I would love for you to go out and look at and talk with both of these, Victor and Rob, about the plants that they brought for you tonight. Let's get started. Dr. Doug Talamay, this is the Homegrown National Park website. If you just type in Homegrown National Park or Doug Talamay, you'll find this website. He is the professor of entomology at the University of Delaware. His studies are the plant and insect associations. And his Homegrown National Park is a call to action. Not just sitting, listening to his talks, it's a call to action for all of us. And the reason why is our national parks, no matter how grand in scale, these are his own words, are too small and separated from one another to preserve species to the levels needed. Thus, the concept for Homegrown National Park, a bottom-up call to action to restore habitat where we live and work, and to a lesser extent, where we farm and graze, extending national parks to our yards and communities. Now, I would encourage you, Dr. Doug Talamay has written all of these books. The first one I read was Bringing Nature Home. I have every one of these. Nature's Best Hope is a really good book for book clubs. It offers a lot of practical information and advice. He's also written recently 2 other books, some for young people and some that answer questions that he's been asked over and over and over again. When you read these books, you're going to hear a term, and it's called ecosystem services. And ecosystem services that sustain us are becoming compromised. And these are services that nature provides. Things like oxygen, clean air, clean water, flood control, pollination, pest control, and carbon storage. And if we don't get busy, these things are getting harder to come by. There's 4 features to a homegrown national park. This is where I want you to start thinking about what might you be doing. And maybe you're already doing a lot of things, and that's fantastic. So the features of a homegrown national park is to first support the food web, because we know animals rely on native plants to sustain them. So when we have monocultures, and a monoculture is a lawn, it doesn't support life. It is a monoculture, and also invasive and exotic plants. Those are food deserts to most animals. So can these animals survive in your yard? These are mostly the bottom of the food web, but not quite the bottom. The second feature is sequestering carbon. We know that climate change and carbon dioxide is not good, so we want to capture carbon and store it. We know that amazing trees, big trees, do this wonderfully in their tissue. They do it in the soil, and we can do this if we just plant some trees. So these are some wonderful trees. We actually have black gums here tonight. The sycamores are great for urban areas. But the question is, and oaks are exceptional at sequestering carbon. They're also exceptional at supporting the food web. So if you have conditions to plant any of these trees, and maybe you have them, you could also find an oak tree. There's an oak for pretty much any situation. So the question is, am I growing in your yard? Have you thought about planting oaks? You don't have to plant a big one. You could plant a 5-gallon one. It'll start working right away. Managing the watershed, the third feature of a homegrown national park. This is really important for those of us here. We live near the Chesapeake Bay. We know the problem of runoff. We have a stormwater fee. We know that the Chesapeake is sick because of runoff. And yes, we can point to agriculture, and agriculture is doing a lot to harm our Chesapeake Bay, but so are we. And so we need to control and manage our runoff, and can do that by reducing our lawns. So are you protecting our waterways? The last feature of a homegrown national park is supporting pollinators. So that means creating space for, and this one is easy. Everybody likes to have flowering plants. So that's not hard, but what I would encourage you to do is think about when you have these flowering plants, do you have some for early spring? Do you have some for late in the fall? Do you have some for winter? So that's important. So are you planting for pollinators? I know most of you are planting and you have lovely plants in the summer, but we want to really, when those bumblebees come out, they need nectar and they need food to get that first brood of insects going. So we can do all of these things using native plants. So what is a native plant? We're going to briefly go through this. I'm going to tell you that native plants weren't introduced here by the colonists. They occurred here naturally. They're not bullies, they're not invasive, they're not going to harm the environment, they're going to benefit the environment. The plant you're looking at is Eutrochium fistulosum. It's the largest Joe Pye weed. It can be 10 feet tall. And as a matter of fact, we've got some here that you can purchase from Wildside Nursery. That's a black swallowtail, it's a male. Also swamp sunflower. These are some wonderful native plants that you can consider. And of course, our state tree of Maryland. So these are plants that occur naturally, and they're not invasive, and like I say, they're benefiting our ecosystems. Now, native plants evolved naturally with our local fauna. They've developed a relationship. They're also adapted to our climate and our soil. And when we talk about our climate, we're talking about temperature, we're talking about precipitation, but we're also talking about wind and humidity. Our humidity here is pretty unique, right? We have some really humid weather here. And if you're in the coastal plain, it can be quite windy. Now, when we talk about the evolution of plants with the fauna, we're talking about this most classic example is the monarch butterfly. We know that this monarch butterfly co-evolved with the genus Asclepias, that's milkweed. This caterpillar you see can only eat Asclepias. It can't eat any other plant. Has a very strict diet. Any of you that have any strict diet, this has the strictest diet, right? So when that butterfly is migrating or coming from Mexico to go to Canada, it's looking, because there's 4 generations of monarch butterflies in one season. It's looking for milkweed to lay eggs on all the way until it gets to Canada. And it can't put it on any other plant, because when the egg hatches, that caterpillar will only survive if it's on a milkweed plant. I like to quote Rosalie Barrow-Edge. The time to protect a species is while it is still common. Are monarch butterflies still common? Are you seeing them in your yard? So in addition, we know that Lobelia cardinalis, this is cardinal flower, this plant evolved with this animal. That's obvious, it's got a nice tubular flower, and most bees can't pollinate this plant. Butterflies can. And this barred owl uses a sycamore in my front yard because it gets cavities in it, this tree, and it nests in there and it raises its family in that cavity. So all different associations have occurred over time. Native plants also need less water, no fertilizer, they're more resistant to disease and insects. This plant, Baptisia australis, this is actually a perennial plant. It grows into the size of a shrub every year, and then it goes back down to the ground, and you won't know it was even there. It also fixes nitrogen, so we know nitrogen is in fertilizer, and we also know it's in our air. So it takes nitrogen, fixes it in its roots, and it actually improves the soil on its own. So it doesn't need any fertilizer. Most native plants do. Now, when I say less water, this is all based on you planting them in the proper site. So I like to if you plant a native plant in a site where it would naturally occur, then yes, it should do well. But if you put a plant that wants dry in a wet area or vice versa, it may not survive. And that's not the plant's fault. That's us doing our lack of research, I guess. So why are native plants the key? So these are just some of the selection of the birds in my yard. And you can see there's many of them. Native plants are the key because we know that birds rely on native plants for food, for shelter, and to raise their babies. And we also know, so birds need native plants. But we also know that birds are doing things for us. These ecosystem services, they're dispersing seeds. They're controlling a lot of insect population. Would be in big trouble without our birds. And they're also pollinating a lot of plants for us. So we need birds. Now, native plants sustain more than just birds. They support many forms of life, and biodiversity is very important. We know this is a critical need to improve biodiversity. So when we look at this here, if we think of it as a food web, at the bottom are the native plants. And what do we see on those native plants? We see insects. Insects are eating the native plants. The other bugs, or the reptiles, the amphibians, the birds are eating the insects, and then other things are eating them. It's all the food web. This relationship of native plants to animals is not unique to your backyard. As a matter of fact, if you go to Arizona, if you go to Saguaro National Park, there's the Gila woodpecker there. Its host plant, its native plant that it relies on is that beautiful saguaro, which is now almost endangered because of the heat. And this is a cactus. We know that the koala relies on eucalypts. You just asked those people in Australia in 2019 when there was a fire and they were out in their backyard rescuing the koala because he's like a sloth, he can't run, right? And so, yeah, so they eat eucalypts, that's what they eat. Those are keystone species in those countries or in those locations. So biodiversity creates an environment for all living things, a healthier environment. So why do I love seeing these animals in my yard? Well, look what they do for me. I'm not excited about slugs, but I love that I have an opossum that's eating the ticks and the mosquitoes. But I can tell you when that gray squirrel and that bunny come to my yard, the fox loves it. I've seen their encounters, but I don't usually show them because it's kind of gruesome. So how do these native plants support so much life? Well, they do it by supporting the two most important insect groups. This is directly from Doug. So it's the caterpillars. It's insects that contribute the most energy to the food web. We're going to focus mostly on this tonight. Pollinators, insects that maintain plant diversity. So I'm going to take you in my backyard. In my backyard, in 2019, August, my mother passed away. My first Mother's Day without my mom was during COVID. It was May 2020. I'm in my backyard, I'm feeling kind of sad, and I hear this bird, and I hear this noise coming from this umbrella, And there's a nest in the bottom of this umbrella, and I'm really worried. Is anyone going to help these birds? What should I do? And then she shows up. And I knew already, Mom. Yeah. So, do you know this bird? And you know what she did? In 20 minutes, I took these photographs. Oh, sorry. So, I don't know, so I have a lot of native plants. She had no problem finding caterpillars to feed these birds. And eventually, this little one fledged. And even as it's a fledgling, it was a nestling, then it fledged. She still needs to feed it, and she's only feeding it caterpillars because it doesn't eat berries or seeds or nuts. But we need these insects. We need them for our ecosystems to function properly, but we need them, especially caterpillars. We need insects that eat leaves. Seems kind of odd, right? Now, what we do know is when we're spraying insecticides, we're poisoning the food that birds need to live. And if the caterpillars are sprayed, then we're feeding those to the birds and it's getting them sick and it's toxic to them. So your plant choices matter, your behaviors matter out in your garden. So there's a small number of plants that are much more productive at supporting life. And we're going to talk about those. There's a name for them. They're called keystone species. So if you look to the right, you see in this arch, there's a keystone. That wedge is the keystone. It's the one that's holding everything together. It has a disproportionately large impact on this arch. And that's the thing about keystone species. We know that 14% of native plants actually support 90% of caterpillars. And Doug has actually committed time to write an entire book on the nature of oaks because of their value and benefit to the environment. And of course, they also are excellent at sequestering carbon and protecting our watershed. I want to mention that when we're picking our plants, everyone loves a pretty face, right? We want flowering plants and things. But if all we plant are crepe myrtles and azaleas from Asia, we are not supporting the food web. We're supporting our interest in color in our yard. We need to rethink a little bit about, can we compromise here? Can we do something better? There's a lot of other keystone species. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I have some literature out there on my board, and you can go to the Homegrown National Park, and there's a list there as well. So there's trees, shrubs, and perennials that are actually keystone species. So when you plant these keystone species or native plants, then this happens. These are the birds that are nesting in my yard and spending a season there and living and breeding, and I see them every day, right? These are families that I share my yard with. And then I see this happen. I see this bluebird getting some food, and he's feeding her, she's feeding him, and then she's feeding the babies, and it makes me feel good. So where do we begin? Where do you begin? Well, you first do no harm. And we do that by removing and not planting exotics or invasive plants. I'm only going to talk briefly about these because we're on a time crunch here, but Japanese barberry, we do know one thing about this plant. It harbors ticks. And you may think that you don't have ticks, but you probably do if you have this plant. And so this is not ornamental. Does anyone ever been bit by a tick and had this happen? This is the classic example. So, and we know this is a plant that supports life for ticks, not the life we want to support. And we know that because we have volunteers that do this kind of work. This is dirty work. This is taking these white sheets and going through forests that have understory of barberry and then an understory of other plants. And when you have barberry as the understory, you'll have 10 or 20 more number of ticks on these sheets. That's how we know this. We know burning bush is doing this to the Atlantic seaboard. This is a really bad plant. Now, people buy this. A lot of people put it in churches. They associate it with the burning bush in the Bible. This is not a plant from Jerusalem. This is not the burning bush, okay? This should be thrown out. This actually gets berries. And when you're an adult bird, you might eat berries that are not going to benefit you in the long run because you're going to go poop them out somewhere, and now you're going to be planting an invasive plant. But a bird doesn't know isn't any wiser, right? So, and this is a really competitive and very strong plant. And then the last plant is heavenly bamboo, which is far from heavenly. Okay, so this is not ornamental. This is an unhealthy plant because this plant has cyanide in it. Now, it's not an incredible amount of cyanide. I could probably eat one of these berries or multiple berries. But if you're a cedar waxwing, these birds, when they eat, they gorge. So do you know some people like that? When they eat, they're like finished way before everyone else. That's this bird. This bird doesn't just eat one, it eats many. And when it eats many, it has a lot more cyanide. And now it gets wonky. It might die on the spot. It might fly into a tree, into a car. So it's not healthy. So when you remove these plants, don't gift them to your neighbor. That is not being friendly, right? Just stay informed, pull, and when you go shopping, it's kind of like when you go shopping and you're hungry, you buy stuff you're not supposed to eat. Well, when you go shopping, go prepared. Kind of know what you're looking for and maybe know the botanical name of the plant you're looking for. And if you go in a nursery and you ask for it and they don't have native plants, then say, oh, that's too bad, I can't shop here. Don't buy the pretty thing. There's a lot of beautiful native plants you can buy at these nurseries that I just mentioned. There are nurseries out there that will provide native plants to you. This is the last plant I'm going to mention that's invasive. If you have this, I hope you don't. This is a harder plant to remove because it's a tree. It's the Callery pear, and it creates a monoculture. It originally was brought here, and we thought it was sterile, and it's not sterile in the least. So this is what happens in Glen Burnie. It happens all along the highways. Everybody sees these. Many people think they're dogwoods. They're not dogwoods. They're not service berries. They're an invasive plant. This is the dump where I go to empty my truck when I do go to the dump. This is Callery pear everywhere. I want to pull it up. I want to put it in the dump. And then what I want to do is I want to start planting some native plants that can bring value and benefit the environment. And we have many keystone species that we could be using, and this would be make an incredible difference if we could do that. So what do we do next? Well, maybe this is your house. And we know previously there was a forest here. There were a lot of trees here. And so we want to kind of reintroduce native plants, and we want to have a nice property. But what happened when this house was built? Well, probably a lot of topsoil was removed. And unfortunately, that's where all the microorganisms are. That's where all the really great soil is, in those top layer. So a lot of damage has been done to this lawn. We also have compaction, so a lot of water settling. Here in Baltimore, and we're in the Piedmont region, so a lot of the soil is clay, and when it's compacted, it's very hard for plants to grow in these conditions. And if we have, maybe we're in a townhome, and we really need to manage our water because we don't want it getting in our basement and doing damage there. So what do? We could be an indecisive gardener. This person just couldn't decide what to plant. So they didn't. They just bought some plastic plants. And you know what? This is better than planting an invasive plant, right? This is someone who said, I'd like to take one of everything. The bad choices gardener. And this is the worst case. This is the expansive lawn. This has to stop. This is what's really doing a lot of harm to our environment. The problem is, these are residential properties. So it's like you have to talk to every resident in order to introduce them to native plants and encourage them to create some area for conservation landscaping. What do we know about lawns? I'll tell you what they're not good at. They're not good at creating a homegrown national park. But what they are good at is creating a homegrown national park, because that's how you do it. You reduce your lawn. So let's do that. Let's walk through an example of doing that. So this is a townhome. This is a small property. And in this case, this is very similar to when my son was living in Atlanta. Heavy clay, no privacy, HOA had certain rules, but the first thing you do before you do any planting in Maryland is you call 811, because that's missed utility. And then someone will come and mark where your utilities are so you don't break anyone's FiOS and do some damage. And you'll get fined if you do. The fines just went up last year, I think. So you get your utilities identified, and then you think about, well, what am I going to do in my yard? Because you want to put your hardscaping in first. So most people in a property like this are going to want a deck. You want to sit outside, you get home from work, you want to have a beer, you want to sit out and have a barbecue. And then you want to check what kind of soil and sun, your light, right? What do plants need? Soil, sun, right? And water. So in this case, there's a lot of runoff. The water settles at the bottom here, and you want to get the water away from your house. And you want to create privacy. So a great native plant is the American holly, right? So maybe we should just plant some. No, this is muck. This is heavy clay. A holly tree does not want to live in heavy clay, and your HOA probably would object. So sorry, gotta go. But what can we plant? We can plant some very nice plants like this is a sweet bay. This is a Magnolia virginiana. This can actually do very well in these conditions. And your neighbors will like it because it has a beautiful fragrance in May. We could plant some large shrubs. These are arrowwood viburnums. This is another viburnum here. This is a viburnum nudum. So what we're doing when we're planting these plants is we're sequestering carbon, we're supporting the food web, but we've got a long way to go. We've got to go all the way around the yard. Now we have more tall plants. We particularly aren't crazy about this neighbor, so we want royally tall plants. So we're going to plant some aronias here. Those are red chokeberries. They have a really early flower, which is great for the bees. And then we need to deal with this problem. So I'm a watershed steward, so I know a lot of times when I visit properties, one of the priorities is to understand your foundation. Do you have foundational issues? Because everybody wants to have a nice pollinator garden, but let's deal with the tricky stuff first, the part that's going to maybe cost a lot of money. So in this case, we're actually going to plant some erosion plants. We're going to plant some rocks there, so when the water comes tumbling down, it slows down, it causes less erosion, and we have these great erosion plants. This clethra, the sweet pepper bush, is amazing at doing this. And it's also fragrant in July. So we're going to put it over by the sitting area as well. And then under the window, there's a window right there. So we want to look out and we want to see some pretty things blooming. So we want a low plant. So that's a cultivar of our sweet spire. It's called Little Henry. And now we're managing our runoff. We're sending the water to all these plants. Now we can plant the grass. But we're still not supporting pollinators. We don't have a really good pollinator garden yet, do we? These all support pollinators, but not enough. So we're going to add some keystone species. And the things that we're going to add are blue stem goldenrod and some black-eyed Susans. And that adds color. And they have long bloom periods. So now we can enjoy our homegrown national park. This is a very easy design. This is a very low maintenance design. When these plants lose their leaves, we simply rake them underneath all the plants. We don't remove them. We don't have to take them out of the yard. We want to have leaf litter on the ground in the winter. We want that leaf litter is actually where the butterflies are overwintering. You know, the monarch migrates, but most butterflies don't. Most butterflies go into diapause, and then they overwinter in leaf litter. So we need to leave a leaf litter. So why did we choose these plants? So I'm just going to walk through some of the reasons why these are great plants. These are all in my backyard. So listen, this hummingbird loves magnolia. She loves to nectar. Now it's actually pollinated by beetles. But when you have this plant, after it flowers, it gets a seed pod. Those seed pods are out now on my magnolia, and I will go home and I will see this happening, and I will hear this happening. You know the cardinal. Do you know this one? That's the robin. The robin loves these. These are berry eating. This one I love to see, this red-eyed vireo, and I love seeing the red-eyed vireo because it is an amazing insectivore. It eats a lot of bad insects. So So he's a great animal to see. Now, the magnolia is also a host plant. Like the milkweed was a host plant for the monarch caterpillar, this magnolia is a host plant for the eastern tiger swallowtail. So isn't that nice? That's actually on this viburnum, this arrowwood. This has great berries, it's sequestering carbon. It's also host plant for this beautiful hummingbird clearwing moth. And it's called arrowwood because the branches, there's many branches from the bottom of the plant, and they grow very straight, like an arrow. And so if you have these, it can almost create a really nice, even in the winter, a lot of density. So it's really good to layer these. And then the birds nest in them. That's a fledgling cardinal in my yard on a viburnum. This is in my backyard. This is in the summer, then it's the fall color. This is my front yard. And I can tell you in my front yard, I had a really bad problem with runoff. My yard slopes very slightly in the front. In the back, it's straight from my neighbors. I get all their runoff. But in the front, it's just slight. But I can tell you, there's 4 viburnums. Underneath, these are evergreen ferns and a bunch of other perennial flowering plants. That's what it looks like in the wintertime. That's what it used to look like. So this is how you manage your runoff. It's not hard. These are not expensive plants, and they're very adaptable to sun and shade, actually, the arrowwood is. So now we're going to talk about red chokeberry. So red chokeberry, in the spring, very early spring bloomer. In the summer, the berries form very quickly. This is it in the fall. This is a great plant for the fall color. It's also good because it hosts 29 caterpillars. And here it is in the wintertime, dripping with berries. And the berries will stay on the plant well into the winter because they're tart. They're called chokeberry, not because they're going to make you choke. They're very tart. And until they sweeten up, they're really not going to be eaten by the birds. So it's like a late January is when we get the cold weather, and that's when they become tasty. And that's when we see these animals eating them. They're actually full of antioxidants. And there's a big business around chokeberries because they're so healthy, but healthier than blueberries. But they don't taste like blueberries, right? But you can see even the squirrel, he loves them. This is Brilliantisma. This is a cultivar called Brilliantisma. And this is what I see out my window this close. I could almost pet these birds. They're not shy. And so now they can gorge all day on these. These are healthy berries. So here's this erosion plants I mentioned. This is sweet pepper bush, very attractive to butterflies. This is very attractive to butterflies. And this is me out. It also has a lot of moths on it. So I like to go out at night with my headlamp and look at moths. So this is some of those. And then we also have sweet spire. This has different heights. These are cultivars. The native plant species tend to be taller, but if you want shorter plants, they come in shorter cultivars. This is their fall color. And then here's the keystone species. So we have the orange cone flower, which will get loads of butterflies. So I have a lot. This is such an easy plant. Hot, dry conditions. This will do very well. And then, of course, the goldenrod, a keystone species as well for butterflies and other insects. So that's that case. Now, this is actually a real case. This is my front yard. Okay, so can this be a homegrown national park? I don't know. It's a mess. There's a lot of problems here. My neighbors are in the front slope down, so I get a lot of runoff there, and noise and compacted soil. So there's not much going on here that's really good. So what I ended up doing is the first thing I did was I removed the invasive. So I had to get rid of the English ivy. And when I started doing it, I got a bad case of poison ivy. I'm very allergic. I came in and I'm like, oh, you can't believe this. So then I had to hire somebody to pull it because I couldn't keep getting sick. So I got rid of that, called Miss Utility. There's my flag. Said, okay, I've got clay. Most of you probably have clay if you're in this area. And it's pretty much sunny. This is afternoon sun, so it's pretty sunny here. Again, no holly. That would have been my first choice because I love holly trees, and I really wanted to hide my neighbor. But you know what? I didn't do that. Instead, I put a river birch. They love clay, they love water, they love sun, and they love this location. And I love them because they're a keystone species. And I see a lot of action on this tree. And I actually, because I planted this plant, I had to move my lawn, I had to reduce my lawn even further. because it's a bigger plant than the holly tree. So a lot of things are happening here. I got a ton of shrubs under this plant. Lots of plants, and we're going to talk quickly about those. And then, of course, I planted more ground covers because I want to have spring, summer, fall, winter pollinators. And so here's this river birch, 411 species of caterpillars. So this is an animal I see in my yard, the Polyphemus moth, and I may have this river birch to thank for that. It's also deer resistant. So if you have really big deer pressure and you have moist, average soil, you could plant a river birch. You'd be doing yourself a favor and a lot of benefit to the environment. So this is great canopy, slowing down the runoff. So these birds, this black-capped chickadee is looking for insects. The bird on the right, the goldfinch, is a vegetarian, so she's eating the seeds on this plant. And if I had thought about it, I should have planted more, because it looks really nice when you plant many of them together, 3 or 4 or 5. This is a neighbor. Underneath there, besides the shrubs, I have really early blooming flowers. These are mertensia. These are bluebells. Rob, do you like bluebells? He told me that was his favorite plant earlier, so I just had to ask. So there's also phlox here, evergreen phlox. Stolonifera is an evergreen phlox. And then I have summer and fall plants blooming. This short-tooth mountain mint, Pycnanthemum muticum, it's a mint. It's an aggressive plant. I don't mind that it's an aggressive plant. I like plants that are kind of bullish, because sometimes, especially when you have invasive plants, you need plants that can be competitive. This fall plant is an aster. It's supporting the migrating and the overwintering butterflies. Lots of pollen there. And then when we look at the shrubs, these are plants that are fantastic in the winter because they're doing a lot of work in the winter. They're sustaining migrating birds, like this hermit thrush. It's a beautiful bird. They're also helping the overwintering birds, like the cedar waxwings and the robins. And then the spice bush. These are all hosting butterflies. This one actually has a butterfly named for it, the spice bush swallowtail butterfly, a blue butterfly, really pretty butterfly. And the spice bush is deer resistant. So between the river birch, the short-tooth mountain mint, and this spice bush, the deer don't like any of those plants. So that's a good thing for those of you who have deer pressure. I just want to talk briefly about a couple of other plants, in particular this willow oak. I just drove here from Anne Arundel County. I live in Severna Park. You will see this plant, this is a willow oak, many, many places, because the county, the state plants it a lot of places because it's so adaptable. It has willow-like leaves that are easily compostable. It's good for a lot of reasons. This is my friend Barbara. She lives across from the Severn River. She looks at the Severn River when she sits on her porch. She has waterfront property, but she planted a willow oak in her front yard. People are like, what? But you know what? It's blazing hot there. So here you can see, looking back, there's this willow oak. And she sits here, and she can still see the river. She could have limbed it up if she wants to, so she could see a little more. But you can see this canopy. It's slowing down the runoff. It's helping protect the Severn River. It also has a lot of really good features, like its ability to tolerate compacted soil and salt. So people in the coastal plain, we have to think about brackish. If we have inundation, then it can be a problem. This is at a school near me. Somebody was smart. This is a tree. It's not disrupting the cement, but somebody planted here. This is where the bus comes. This is where the runoff comes. It's cooling the runoff. It's cooling the school. It helps to lower the utility bills, and it looks nice. It's considered an ornamental shade tree. This is also, you can see the county planting it right by the road. It's not disrupting the road. It's not going to disrupt your sidewalk. It is providing shade here by the Einstein bagels. Now, I'm a veteran. I was in the Air Force. My husband and I were both served. And in 2017, the Naval Academy is where I go for my doctor's appointments and where I go grocery shopping. And in 2017, they took the very old medical building and they tore it down and they built another one. It's still small, but in doing so, they had to redo the parking lot. and some very smart landscaper was hired. And this is the design this person did. So this happened in 2017. I just got very lucky that I was taking pictures then. So they planted a willow oak. This is probably a 10-gallon tree. It's not, it's not super big. We could plant this. But in addition, there's only 3 plants in this design. So there's blazing star, that's the liatris, the purple plant, and then there's this Grollo sumac. This is what it looks like. So in 2021, so it's the Navy, they like to trim it and make it look like boxwood. So they trim it, it's very neat. And then this is what it looks like in the fall and then in the winter. And then it happens all over again. But I want to tell you, I was there in the spring of 2025, and now the trees are looking this big. So even though they planted it, right, it's 8 years later, it's not going to grow super fast. So even if you plant a small plant, a 5-gallon oak tree, in your lifetime, it's not going to be a tree that you have to worry about falling on your home. But it is a plant that your children are going to say, thank you, because we need those trees. So this is if you have hot, dry conditions, you should consider this Grollo sumac. I know that Rob has some outside. He can show you those. And this is my front yard, and I use this underneath oak trees where it can still get some sun. This faces west. So, and then I have a pollinator garden that's close when I open my front door. But when you frame anything with a single plant, I basically framed my very busy native plant garden with one plant. So from the street, this is what people see. It looks like I'm neat. You can kind of see what's going on the other side, but only if you come up to my front door do you really see the big action. And it's deer resistant. So it's a really, really good plant. And it gets tiny, tiny bees because it has a very small berry. The last woody I'm going to talk about is this bayberry, and that's because we live on the Chesapeake Bay. And I like to talk about bayberries because we have a northern and a southern. They're also called wax myrtles. And because some of us, if you live on the coastal plain, if you live by the water, you need to have plants that can tolerate some salinity, some brackish water. And these plants can do that. They have waxy berries. This is a myrtle warbler, if you're lucky enough to see one. It's named for the plant because it loves to eat those berries. And it's deer resistant. So this is a design I did. This is in a community center near my home, and they had a whole stream of nandina. This is the heavenly bamboo. So I asked them, do you think there's a chance we could replace those with something else? I'd still be evergreen. It just wouldn't have red berries. And you know what? It's by the parking lot. Nobody really cares, right? They said, okay, Alison, let's go for it. So we planted southern bayberries. We planted these wax myrtles, Morella cerifera, in March. And this is them today. They like to make a hedge out of them. I don't care. They can do whatever they want. But now we have habitat. We have a beneficial plant. And I can tell you, if they didn't prune them as a hedge, then they might have something like this. This is actually at a playground in North Carolina where I take my grandson. So it does lovely there, and it's providing a lot of shade where I can sit. But you can see this plant will get big, but it's not a tree. It'll go about 15 feet. But it's great for privacy. So let's talk about pollinators. Why are we going to help the pollinators? Because these are the animals that are going to maintain plant diversity. And I can tell you, I want plant diversity. I don't just want flies pollinating skunk cabbage. I want other flowering plants. I can also tell you that as a vegetarian, the majority of crops that provide our nutrition are pollinated by insects, mainly bees. So if you like fruits, vegetables, and nuts, you should want to plant a pollinator garden. So what are the threats that pollinators are facing? Well, we're going to go through a couple of them. Let's start with habitat loss. So habitat loss is when we take an area that was maybe a forest, it was a natural space, and we replace it with a very busy highway or a city block. And when we do that, we're now introducing, a lot of heat. Now we have, higher temperatures. We've got more runoff. We've got more flooding. So habitat loss is when we have all this development. There's no chance that plants can live here. It's cement. So with habitat loss, it doesn't mean having a harder life for an animal. It means there is nowhere to live a harder life. Now, habitat fragmentation is very different. That's when we take a large piece of area and we divide it because we want to have a tennis court or, I'm not sure, is that tennis court? Some kind of a court, football or something, or a new 7-Eleven, or whatever that is we're doing, but we break it up into fragments. And so now the populations that used to live there, they're separated. And so now they have to either compete for resources, but they also have to worry about finding a mate. So you might have more inbreeding, so more unhealthy populations of animals, or you might have the danger of a fox trying to cross the road. I mean, you can see, and this is true for pollinators too, because native bees, unlike honeybees can travel farther. Most native bees are ground nesting bees. They don't want to travel far from home. They live, and they don't generally. Some of them only travel like 900 feet or not very far at all to find food. So this is fragmentation. And then there's degradation. That's the invasive species that we mentioned earlier. It's the kudzus, it's the burning bushes, it's the monoculture lawn that we have. This is not comparable. When we take a forest down, build a house, and plant these kinds of things, it's not comparable to what was there. We just are not providing food for anything. So now we have pesticide use. We know that pesticides is bad. We talked about caterpillars earlier. And when we're spraying, and I know farmers do need to spray. That doesn't, I haven't lost the fact that I know this, but if we plant corridors near where they're spraying, nobody's gonna wash this food before the bees go and eat it. Not like we can wash our tomatoes or our blueberries. So this is still harmful. What's nice is we're still seeing more of these signs. So if you do care and you do have a Baywise or you are on the pollinator pathway, you could put a sign out and make people more aware that this is an action that you're taking. And the last thing I want to mention is the climate change, because we know the new weather patterns. We're getting blooms much earlier. They're out of sync, and that causes a lot of issues for the pollinators and the plants, and it also reduces the quality of the pollen and the nectar. So my last question to you is this resemble your yard or your entrance to your community? And can you imagine it looking differently? So if you are interested, if you do plant some native plants in your property, and I hope that you do, you can get on the Homegrown National Park website. You can mark, the firefly is their mascot. They are very much into the SDGs. For those of you who are familiar with this United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, they are a partner. If you have a company, you could partner with the Homegrown National Park and get your logo on here. So these are the 4 things. Would love for you to do these. And that's it. I want to thank you very much. Thank you. And I think we're going to ask if there's any questions. I'll be happy to field some questions. Hello.
I often have a question about when you see a label that says cultivar. If you're looking for a native plant, does cultivar just mean it can still be a native
So it's been cultivated to do something else. So nativar, cultivar, I mean, some cultivars could be cultivars of not native plants, but so that's the question you have to ask. That's why it's really important to do this, actually, to be prepared when you go shopping, to have the name of the plant that you're looking for, and a cultivar will be in single quotes. Like this is a cultivar of a Viburnum nudum. This plant is cultivated to be shorter than the native plant. This plant is brandywine, and if you go to buy it, you'll see it has brandywine on the label. Okay, it also has winter thur is another plant that often goes with it. It's a beautiful plant. The berries go pink to blue. The birds eat them. Has really glossy leaves. So to answer your question, it can be, but I would encourage you all to take this. If you don't have this, are you familiar with this document? You can put it on your phone. I have it on my phone. I have it on my iPad. I have it on my computer. So this is a really excellent document to read. It's not very many pages. It has the native plants to the mid-Atlantic states, basically, and it tells you the conditions and things. I can't tell if there's any more questions. Okay. So then, since there's no more questions, I'm going to ask you a question to take this picture, because this is also 3 books that I think would be really useful for you. The green book, this is if you live by waterfront or if you have access to water. The one in the middle, Rob is actually selling the hard copy, and then this is just the same book on the left. And I have one last slide. I wasn't going to show it, but I'm going to show it. Okay. So remember Rosalie Barrow Edge? You remember what she said? The time to protect a species is while it is still common. These are still common. Now, when I talk to my grandson, I read him books. I have 2 grandsons, Louis and Simon. And I read them a lot of books. They love books. And they're not yet watching movies, but they will watch movies, and they will watch these movies. But we are reading a lot of Eric Carle books, right? So who's watched these movies? We've all watched Bambi, right? And Zootopia. I don't want the only time my kids to see these animals is in a book or a movie. It can't be that way. These animals need native plants. And you can do something, you can help them so that my grandkids and your grandkids can see them. All right, so now I'm really finished. So I'm so sorry. Where can you see native plants? I can tell you right now, you can go to the Delaware Botanic Garden in Delaware. It's by, what is the beach up there? Bethany Beach, maybe Bethany Beach, the Delaware Botanic Garden. There's many, do you want to help me out here? Rob? Victor? Cromwell Park? Cromwell Valley Park.
The Dew Gardens has more formal stuff if you want to see formal stuff, but they have native plants, native meadows. Victor, you've got some, I'm going to hand this to you in a second.
Victor, you have some designs. Victor designs landscapes as well.
Shameless plug. If you come out to Herring Run Nursery, we have educational way stations because we want people to see what you can do with natives besides plant something pretty. So we have a pollinator garden, we have a wet meadow, a dry meadow, a water-wise garden, and an edibles and medicinals garden. So it's all things that you could do at your home with plants that we have on our site. And I'm going to let Victor talk about what he has.
Just other places to see native plants. We have 2 great community land trusts nearby. One in the city is Baltimore Green Space, and they own and manage a bunch of kind of pocket parks in our urban areas. And then Neighbor Space of Baltimore County is kind of the Baltimore County version of that, also a community land trust with lots of good pocket parks within the URDL line, kind of on the urban, suburban frontier.
Do you
in this neighborhood, if you want to walk down to the bottom of the hill, you can see Poplar Hill Park, which has been established with white oak, river birch, furnace, fringe tree.
do you know, are those plants labeled? Oh. Are those? Is,
Invite the nurseries to say a couple words. Okay, guys, we're running down on our time, but we'd like to give the 2 nursery people, Rob Jenkins and Victor here, to share a little bit about what they do and what you can find at their locations. And then please stay around and look at the plants outside talk to Allison. You can organize an appointment for her to come and do a landscape design on your property. And let Victor have the word. Go ahead.
Yeah, first I want to thank Allison for the wonderful talk here. Yeah. And just a little bit about myself. I have had a native plant nursery for about 8 years, and I specialize in local ecotype plants. So I go out into the wild and find remnant wild populations of a lot of the plants we're talking about, especially meadow plants, and grow them out. And once I have them in gardens, I can collect much greater amounts of seed, and I give seed sometimes to Blue Water Baltimore and also to the community land trusts nearby, and really anyone who will take the seed and grow them. Yeah, and I specialize in growing kind of small sizes. So Allison had shared a picture of her with a 10-foot tall Joe Pye plant, but I like to sell in the half-quart size and also plug sizes so that people can create meadows inexpensively. And also, if we, just in case we needed another reason to do all of the things that Allison recommended, I'd like to put a plug in for fireflies. Does anyone know how long the firefly is in their larval stage? So before they ever are able to fly, they're living in the ground layer of the soil. So just underground or just kind of on top of the soil surface, and they live in that stage for 2 whole years. So some people talk about leaving their leaves over winter. I want you to leave your leaves for 2 whole years. And they eat earthworms, they eat nematodes in that larval stage. They're actually voracious predators. And then they are just in flight for a few weeks, maybe more than a month sometimes. But we can create, so they can't really survive in compacted lawn space. So what they really need is kind of loose leaf litter, mulch, or a meadow planting. So a lot of people, after they plant a huge meadow or a small meadow, or have me plant a big or small meadow, then 2 years later, they'll have really a boom of the firefly population. And then after they have that initial boom, all of those fireflies are laying eggs, and subsequent years, it really can go up exponentially, especially if you live in an area that doesn't have a lot of fireflies right now. So I'm crossing my fingers for everyone to support fireflies and also all of the birds and pollinators that were already mentioned. But yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks, Victor. Now, Rob.
Hello. I am the manager of Herring Run Nursery. We are a program of Blue Water Baltimore. So if you raise your hands if you have heard of Blue Water Baltimore. That is fantastic. Raise your hands if you knew that the nursery was a program of Blue Water Baltimore. That's also pretty good. So great to know that so many people are aware of us. We are a water quality organization. We do a lot of work in the watersheds that feed down into the Inner Harbor and the communities that surround that. Water quality monitoring is key. We have about 50 sites that we monitor, both terrestrial in the Gwynns Falls and the Jones Falls, as well as the Inner Harbor and the Outer Harbor. Since we are all Baltimoreans for the most part, if you want to know the data about what the water is like and whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, howsthewaterhun.org. Howsthewaterhun.org. That's the website to go to. You can access all of our water quality monitoring data. But more importantly, we like to have folks get involved. So whether that's coming to the nursery and purchasing plants or joining us at events that we have going on, whether it's stream cleanups, tree plantings, maintenance projects. We do a lot of green stormwater infrastructure with interfaith organizations. That's something I wanted to mention. You were asking where to go to see native plants in action. We partner with places like Still Meadow Fellowship. We have something like, I don't even know, an insane amount of stormwater runoff treatment going on their site. And it's on Frederick Road. If you have a chance to go down there, we have an event coming up on the 18th of October for a tree giveaway, but you can also go check out everything that we've done with the community with the interfaith organization to mitigate stormwater, get the community involved, and see native plants in action, because that's what we want to show you. I want to piggyback on something Victor said. Fireflies, love them. They're amazing. They're one of my favorite things. If you're spraying your yard, as a water quality organization, we are never going to tell you that's a good thing. As a native plant nursery that is committed to not putting extra stuff into the stormwater runoff, into the drains, we're going to tell you, don't spray your yards with stuff. If you want a healthy population of native insects, one of the things you got to do besides plant native plants, you got to stop putting down chemicals. Mosquito Joe, that's a bunch of nonsense. I'm just going to say it. It's all guff. It's all nonsense. It's a chemical that's going to kill, nothing is going to kill selectively bad insects and leave the good insects alone. It doesn't work that way. So Doug Ptolemy also has on his website the bucket challenge. It's how to get rid of your mosquito population by using lawn clippings and some mosquito dunks. I encourage you to go to that, check that out. Also, come and check us out at Herring Run Nursery, another shameless plug. So we have about 250 to 300 varieties of native plants, trees, shrubs, ferns, sedges, perennials, edibles, pawpaws, blueberries, all kinds of stuff. We are only 15 minutes away from here. We're in between Loch Raven Boulevard and Northern Parkway on Hillen Road. If you know where the Mount Pleasant ice rink is and the Mount Pleasant golf course is, you will easily be able to find us. So I think that's all. I'm not going to take up more of you guys' time, but thank you very much. And thank you, Alison and Greg, and thank you all for coming out.
Okay, and final word from Angela Taylor.
Hi, everyone. I'm a volunteer here at Roland Park Community Center, currently serving as board chair. Thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening. And just in case you didn't know, Alison never likes to self-promote or toot her horn. She's amazing, and she did a beautiful plan for us here at the center. And I want you to know that she has graciously agreed that if anyone who lives in this area would like her to come and create a design like she showed tonight on the screen, she'll come to your home for $100 and create a beautiful plan with you. She'll take photos of your yard, and then she'll superimpose photos of what she's recommending so you can see exactly what it will look like. And then it gets better. She will go to the nursery, she will buy all of the plants, and she will deliver them to your home, and she will do all of that at cost, wholesale cost for the plants, plus she does charge 20% to cover her cost of gas and her truck. So please stick around, get to know Alison, and bring her to your home to create a homegrown national park. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Well said.